Hey everyone, it is Stove here, and obviously this is a very late video of trying to do this, but we are going to go through the review of the Week 15 of the 2025 NFL season. And first things first, Thursday night was a very interesting one. Kirk Cousins playing like how he was able to play back in the era of him being on the Falcons. 373 passing yards and 3 passing touchdowns. All 3 of those touchdowns going to Kyle Pitts Sr. with 11 catches and 166 receiving yards going to him. Robinson also having almost 100 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown with 19 carries. That being said, though, I do think that the Falcons absolutely should have lost, and with all the penalties that they drew, it should have definitely went more towards Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tampa Bay was also scoring a lot more efficiently throughout the quarters, but obviously that still didn't play that only played somewhat of a factor when you had the Falcons score twice in the second quarter and then score another 2 times in the fourth quarter, being able to get a comeback victory against a division rival. And honestly, it's the NFC South, continues to surprise me more and more. But honestly, the last 2 or 3 seasons that I've looked back at, I really don't think it should necessarily surprise anybody if they've been following the NFC South for probably even longer than just 5, 8, 10 years. Because unless it's been one singular team doing the best out of all the rest of the teams in that division, you have pretty much a very close division almost always going into it. And I think that's why Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Panthers are pretty much showing that. Now, obviously, going into Sunday, I was actually at this game, surprisingly enough. I got the news Thursday night that a friend of mine had tickets, and we were able to go to this. First quarter, it was actually quite nice. Was able to see some solid defense, and now still inconsistent offensively. And obviously we didn't have T. Higgins going into this game, and there was a couple other things going wrong for us. And then the second quarter, Ravens scored 2 huge touchdowns for themselves. Going into halftime, before going into halftime, there was at least 2 things that we could have done. Either field goaled it twice, or we could have field goaled it, and then if we didn't get and if we completed a third down conversion, I believe, we would have been able to get either another field goal or another touchdown by the end of the game. But to me, like, I understand a little bit, but it's still about getting the points, getting the morale around your team, because getting points is getting points. I would rather be going into halftime being down 11 points than being down 14 points. It just feels a little bit better, and I think it would feel a lot better for any of the players playing on that Bengals team. But then we do have a very good solid second half, though we still allow 10 points in the second half. I do think only allowing a field goal in the third quarter and then only allowing a touchdown in the fourth quarter, there was definitely a very good chance that if Joe Burrow's not throwing these interceptions or not holding the ball as much or possibly even getting pressured as much, he is going to be getting touchdowns, or someone is going to be getting touchdowns. I'm actually surprised we didn't run the ball a little bit more efficiently or do a couple of different things whenever it came to the run plays. Like just faking people out a little bit more with more of a passing formation, and then going in to be able to with the running back draw or something. Because realistically, I think there's time and time again where even though they were just field goals, we could have gotten at least 3 field goals, not to mention 2 missed touchdown opportunities as well. So does that help us win that thing? Yeah, if we get 9 points from 3 field goals, get a touchdown, possibly even a 2-point conversion early, that's 17 points. Hypothetically, get that second touchdown, and then we get tied. But as soon as Joe Burrow throws that second interception, it goes all the way for a pick six. So it's ends up being the end of the game by the fourth quarter. So realistically, it was 17-0. Maybe even 17-7 if Joe Burrow doesn't throw that second interception there. But anyway, going more and more further into this, since I don't want to jabber on about one singular matchup, you had the Browns get absolutely destroyed by the second, possibly just top 3 defense in the Bears. Caleb Williams even had a pretty solid game here with having 242 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns. DeAndre Swift having nearly 100 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns with 18 carries. Pretty solid game for both teams, gotta say there. Now, obviously, we've seen a lot of things go on with injuries this past weekend. One of them being Patrick Mahomes getting injured, I think, in the third or fourth quarter. And obviously, whether they would have had Patrick Mahomes be still there or not, would that have made the difference? We don't know. I think it would have probably made a slight difference, but still, the Chiefs now 6-8, getting beat by their division rivals a second time, and Chargers go 10-4, which I did have the Chiefs winning, but they didn't. And the Chiefs are no longer in playoff contention. This would be, I believe, 7 or 8 seasons that they haven't been in a AFC Conference Championship, or I'm pretty sure, probably, because I know they've been to more playoffs. They've had more playoff appearances just in the last 15 years than almost any team, I believe. So, pretty dang good. Unfortunately, the Chiefs had continued to have struggles even at their home. They've actually were doing pretty darn good at home, and that's what they were keeping, and that's what was keeping their record pretty stable. But unfortunately, Chargers pretty much just was able to do what they needed to do after the Patrick Mahomes injury. And yeah, Justin Herbert had a decent game, 210 passing yards and a touchdown there. Not too much stuff going on. Travis Kelce obviously getting 70 yards with 7 catches. Pretty dang good. For him, he just wishes he could have done a lot more. I'm sure he was targeted almost 10 times, maybe was 10 times. But anyway, going into probably the game of the week would be the Bills versus the Patriots. The Patriots started off very well in the first half, 24-7. Could have been an absolute blowout, but the Bills continued to fight, didn't allow Drake May the ball too much in that third quarter. Bills then get a score twice. Now it's 21-24, and then the Bills still consistently keep the ball away from the Patriots' hands, but obviously allowing one more touchdown. But then the Bills scoring 2 more touchdowns on top of that is just incredible. Now, obviously, with Henderson doing his thing, Josh Allen doing his thing with 3 touchdowns, not necessarily in the passing yards category, but in the passing touchdowns did pretty darn well, even staying somewhat conservative with his passing, 19 for 28. Now, obviously, because of Josh Allen and because of quite a few other players, such as Travis Etienne Jr., I ended up losing first round of my fantasy playoffs, which I was like the second highest record going in, and ends up getting blown out 177 to 125. Definitely wasn't the best thing to have to deal with, but hey, I guess it happens, and I've already gone through my grief on that. But anyway, solid win against the Bills. I honestly thought the Patriots were going to win, and for that first half, it very much looked like that. So very good change-ups and very good things happening for the Bills, being able to continue to move forward, even in Foxborough, being able to move forward and being able to conduct things the way they needed to on offense and defense, and the Patriots really couldn't do anything in that second half. So again, an incredible game, and definitely is my matchup of the week for sure. After seeing it, well, mostly seeing the highlights, but still. Commanders, surprisingly enough, I thought the Giants were going to take this one, but Commanders ended up doing a pretty solid job. Their rookie running back, Croxy, or as we all know him as Bill, but he did very solid job adding to the points of the 29 with 1 touchdown and nearly 100 rushing yards. A lot of running backs getting nearly 100 rushing yards and just barely getting it, or barely not getting it. But the Giants, Jackson Dart obviously getting 2 passing touchdowns, 246 passing yards. I think Marcus Mariota had a little over 200 passing yards as well. So pretty solid for the Commanders, being able to show out and show that they're not going to give up. But then again, even though the Giants defense has been what they were, which they stopped the Commanders from scoring a lot, but it just wasn't enough for the Giants to be able to do a little bit more. So, but solid game for the Commanders. Eagles absolutely shutting out the Raiders, really didn't need anything. Jalen Hurts threw the ball probably the least amount of times he's had all year, with only 15 throws and 12 of those being completions, 175 passing yards and 3 passing touchdowns. Saquon Barkley also had an incredible game compared to his usual, but he was able to get 78 rushing yards and 1 rushing touchdown. And also Dallas Goedert also getting 2 of those passing touchdowns into receiving touchdowns for himself with 6 catches. So solid game for the Eagles team. Solid defense, absolutely destroying Geno Smith and whoever else was probably playing backup that game, because I'm sure they probably was able to take him out. Now this was a huge thing, but Jaguars looked like an absolute playoff unit against the Jets team. Now granted, they still allowed 20 points throughout the entire game, but the Chargers just completely outscored the Jets 100%. Trevor Lawrence played his absolute best game of his entire career, had 16 total touchdowns. Had 16 total touchdowns for did I say 16? I keep on saying 16. 6 total touchdowns. Probably not. But yeah, 6 total touchdowns from what I see here. And Trevor Lawrence passed for 5 of those touchdowns with 330 passing yards. Sorry. So yeah, very solid. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. So Trevor Lawrence pretty much was a part of every single touchdown that was made throughout that entire game. And Travis Etienne Jr. was also getting 3 of those receiving touchdowns. Lucky for him, he had been getting a lot of stuff and was able to break out into some huge run after catches with only 3 catches and 73 receiving yards. And that was pretty much what killed me too, is just him doing all of what he did. Didn't expect them to really come back like that, but hey, if the Jaguars are in the position of doing what they're doing, they may even sneak up and be able to not only win the AFC South, but also be able to win and get either second, maybe even number 1 seed in the conference championship. Well, conference standings. Jesus, sorry. But at the same time, Jaguars showed something that, or continued to keep on showing something that I am trying to neglect from seeing the Chargers try and do something. But at the same time, they could be a team that is able to go into the playoffs, that is able to win a wild card game, that is possibly even able to make it a very close game and maybe even win a divisional game going into the AFC conference. But I really don't see a couple of those things happening. Maybe a wild card win, but I don't necessarily think it's going to be them going into the AFC conference. It would be quite interesting and quite new, but I don't see that happening. Houston's defense allowing 20, well, we get right into this next one. Houston's defense allowing 20 points throughout the game, but another good offensively good sorry, my mind is wanting to blank, but Houston not only showing their offensive drives, being able to score firsthand, not allowing the Cardinals to score at all, but Houston being very diligent and very successful in scoring 17 points in that first quarter. CJ Stroud had 3 touchdowns, 260 passing yards. Willie Marks ended up getting injured, I believe, and they end up getting Jordan, their second running back here, for just about 100 yards for 15 carries. Trey McBride also, obviously, he's going to have a fantastic game. He's like the best receiver on their team, and yet he's not even an actual wide receiver. But yeah, Houston being able to get their 9th win of the season, pretty solid for them. 5-2 at home as well, while the Cardinals are 2-5 as the away team. Now, from what I said last week, I did think that the Broncos were going to keep their undefeated record, and with them being 12-2 with 7-0 being at home, I figured they were going to play quite well, especially with Bo Nix playing continuously and consistently, at least the last 2 weeks, very good football, having 4 touchdowns, 302 passing yards. Sutton also having a spectacular game with 7 catches and 113 receiving yards and a receiving touchdown. Pretty good play for the Packers as well. Josh Jacobs had some solid work with a touchdown and 73 rushing yards. I think the only thing that killed them, truly, they had a lot of kicks going for them, like a lot of field goals go for them, but what kills me is that their interceptions. Broncos caused some turnovers, was able to pressure Jordan Love quite frequently throughout this game, and that's what pretty much caused them to only really get field goals for the most part. I'm pretty sure Jordan Love had a little over 200 passing yards, but 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions. So that definitely put the Broncos in a very good position, and being able to score in that second and third quarter really helped for sure. Now, obviously, a lot of people would disagree with me on the Bills and the Patriots matchup of being like the best matchup of the weekend. Obviously, the Rams and the Lions had a very good game go on themselves, with Matthew Stafford getting 368 passing yards and 2 passing touchdowns. Williams also getting 2 touchdowns himself, with getting 78 rushing yards. Puka Nacua, who I also had to deal with on my opposing side, he caught 9 catches for 181 receiving yards. That got him up to like 28 points or like 30 something points in my fantasy league that I was doing. And like I said, I had to deal with that. And not only that, but Jameis Williams also had a phenomenal game, with also getting around the same amount of fantasy points as him. Even with St. Brown on there, Lions really didn't want to run the ball that much, so they just continued to pass the ball, with Jared Goff probably also getting like 250 plus and a couple of touchdowns. So pretty solid, pretty good matchup nonetheless, and definitely a big surprise there. But hey, fantasy points were going everywhere for whoever had these players. Now we get to one of the shockers, that the Saints are starting to win more and more. Even though they're out of the playoffs, they're showing a lot of good effort, with basically facing not only their divisional teams that are fighting for a playoff spot right now, but at the same time are also having to face one other team that has that kind of had a playoff chance, but at that point in time it really didn't matter there. But anyway, Saints now 4-10, and I figured that the Saints were going to somehow pull this off. If the Saints were able to beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and then you had the Falcons be able to beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I think the Saints are going to be like, well, if we could beat them, we could beat the Panthers. Let's go out and do that. And that's exactly what they did. Now, granted, slow start for the Saints. Panthers scored the first, and then by halftime it was 10-7 Panthers. Then the Panthers score another time. Saints get 3 points in the third quarter. Then in the fourth quarter, the Saints reverse it and not let the Panthers score at all that entire fourth quarter, and score 10 points to be able to win against their division rivals in the Panthers. So Tyler Shuck also doing a phenomenal job, being able to do his thing. Chris Olave being able to still be that star receiver that a lot of people have pretty much forgotten about. 273 passing yards and a passing touchdown. That passing touchdown going to Chris Olave, with 85 receiving yards and 6 catches himself. So spectacular game for the Saints, truly. And being able to ruin those chances for your divisional teams, it's going to come down to what's going to happen between the Panthers and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers matchups that we will see in the last 3 weeks, 2 out of the last 3 weeks that we have here for the NFL. Then we got the 49ers versus the Tennessee Titans. Obviously, Tennessee still trying to get a win themselves, but the 49ers defense just way too much for them. Brock Purdy even had a fantastic game, being able to see the Brock Purdy of old, of what we saw not just last year but the year before, with 295 passing yards, almost eclipsing 300 passing yards. 23 out of 30 pass completions and 3 passing touchdowns. Now, obviously, you have Tony Pollard, who still trying to put the team on his back with 14 carries, 104 rushing yards, and 1 rushing touchdown. I'm sure someone has probably won because of his efforts the last few weeks. And you got to give it to him too. I think if you just continue to build that offense up, or even build that defense somehow up a little bit more throughout the offseason and through the draft, the Tennessee Titans are going to be scary, especially with a leader like Tony Pollard. Not just saying that Cam Ward can't be a leader, but he hasn't shown it yet. Even though he is a rookie this season, the guy needs to learn a lot through the offseason and hopefully even come out as a second-year captain for the Tennessee Titans. But 49ers get a solid win there. Not surprising. Phillip Rivers having a pretty good game. Now, granted, the Colts still fall to the Seahawks. I think a lot of people still figured that that was going to happen, with the Colts kind of trending down to where they were going to be. Seahawks played great defense. Phillip Rivers, though, still throws a touchdown, does throw an interception, but has a decent game for being 44 years old and haven't played the game in 5 years. That is pretty much an amazing feat for anybody, even if it's an athlete like Phillip Rivers, even if it's somebody that I wouldn't say that just got off the couch, because I think you would have had to have some experience, some skin in the game pretty much, to be able to do the things that Phillip Rivers was able to do for the most part during that game. Still a pretty darn close game. Obviously, Jackson Smith-Njigba was 113 receiving yards and only 7 catches. Unfortunately, with him being on my team, that just wasn't cutting it. Now, granted, getting scored on by 177 points doesn't exactly help me either, but still, Seahawks again win this game 11-3. Colts 8-6. Seahawks really trying to battle for that division title, and the 49ers are just right behind the Seahawks and the Rams. So that's an insane division in its own right there, and it's pretty much this year's NFC West is pretty much last year's NFC North. So incredible thing to see something like that happen, but obviously it feels like it only happens in the NFC. But anyway, you got the Vikings versus the Cowboys. I was very shocked. I thought the Cowboys was going to squeak this in and be able to win by as many points as this. But J.J. McCarthy was able to play extraordinary during this game. And obviously, Dak Prescott had really nothing to really do with the scoring. Now, he did have nearly 300 passing yards, but Javonte Williams had his own almost 100 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown. CeeDee Lamb had his part in it. Vikings defense just was able to come in and play. Even though they were pretty close, 17-17 by halftime, the Vikings defense came out, was able to play the way that they needed to play, only hold the Cowboys to a few touchdowns for that second half. And the J.J. McCarthy run offense of that Vikings team was able to score more in that second half and winning the game 34-26. Pretty impressive. And Vikings being 6-8, even though the Dolphins had also gone 6-8 this past Monday, I do think it still says something about the Vikings being judged a little too harshly, and the fact that they're just now starting to dive their toes into some success. We will more than likely not necessarily see that too much until probably next year, unless they decide to win the last 3 games, go 9-8 or 8-9. It still kind of does impress most people and be like, okay, well, this team may have a future. It's just we had some injuries, we had to deal with some of that stuff, and now we move on to the offseason. We move on to next year. We may even be playoff contenders by next year with J.J. McCarthy as quarterback, as long as he continues to have more good days than bad. We just need to also improve the defense a little bit more, possibly improve the offensive line, and there we go. Hell, maybe, even though you guys have Aaron Jones still, maybe even improve the running back situation, because you guys have a decent wide receiver core with Jordan Addison, Justin Jefferson, a couple other guys that are back there, Hutchinson at tight end. So I think you guys may just need a young running back that can just speed off as he breaks away from all the mayhem that's happening in the middle of the field. But anyway, so going into Monday, we had the Dolphins versus the Steelers. I did think that at first that the Dolphins were going to win. I thought it was actually going to be more of a defensive battle because the Dolphins slowly but surely had to have done a little bit better with their defense. But first quarter was pretty solid for defensively for both teams. Dolphins scored 3 points. Steelers scored 7. By halftime, it could have been anyone's game. But by the second half, the Dolphins allowed 21 points in that second half, and the Dolphins really only were able to score 12 points. I think they scored 12 points with missing 2 2-point conversions, and those 2 2-point conversions would have only really given them 19 to 28. Still wouldn't have done anything good for them, but hey, I mean, that's just pretty much how it goes there. But Steelers able to continue to move away from the rest of the AFC North, while the Dolphins do eat the dirt in Pittsburgh on Monday night. I do think even if they win these next 3 games, somehow they win all 3 of these next 3 games, I think next week the Bengals do face the Dolphins. I don't know if the Dolphins are actually out of the playoffs now. They probably are with the way things are going. So being 6-8, they're done with the playoffs. But again, Mike McCarthy, Mike McDaniel could still get this Dolphins team to win 2 or 3 more games and at least feel a little bit better about themselves going into the offseason. Maybe even a lot of people may still think Mike McDaniel needs to go. I think you guys probably need to kind of just understand, like, Mike McDaniel is going to see what he needs to do to change this offseason. Maybe next year, if it's even worse, to where the if the Dolphins end up losing their last 3 games, then you can say Mike McDaniel maybe needs to go. We are, 6-11. We need something new, but we'll just see what happens these next 3 games. And I'm sure the GM and the owner are probably thinking the same thing. But the Steelers being able to go 8-6 and play phenomenal offense, phenomenal defense for that second half. Granted, a lot of people are also saying how the Dolphins aren't doing very good in the cold so much as they are in warm weather, and the Steelers pretty much capitalized on that second half, which I could understand that for sure, and it probably does, and it definitely does play a huge factor, but at the same time, still, Dolphins end up giving up so many points in that second half regardless of it being cold or not. Steelers were able to capitalize no matter how big it was, no matter how bad it was. Again, Steelers go 8-6. They are a game in front of the Baltimore Ravens, and we will just see what happens in these next 3 weeks, because by the end of the season, week 18, you will have the Steelers and the Ravens facing off with one another, and it really just depends on whether we see the Steelers winning all 3 of their games, winning against Baltimore, going in as an 11-6 team in the playoffs, or they go through a rocky road like they have for the entire past 15 weeks of the season. They will go through these next 3 weeks pretty rocky or pretty steady. So with that being said, though, I did get 9 out of 16 right. If you guys want to go ahead and see how I predicted most of these matchups, was definitely off by some of these matchups for sure, but you want to go look at the preview of this week, more than welcome to. Should be a link that at the beginning of this video that you guys can click on. Thank you guys all for watching, and like, subscribe, comment down below, and let me know what you think. And as always, y'all have a good day.